Hi guys, welcome back. So we are still working on polynomials, and now we're going to be working with the multiplying polynomials. To begin the multiplication process of multiplying polynomials, we need to know how to multiply a monomial times a monomial. So basically, a monomial is just a term. So this would be one term, this would be a second term, and we're multiplying them together. Okay, so the way you do this is first you look to see if there's a coefficient. And so we have a coefficient of a -4 here and a +7 there. And that's where you're going to start the multiplication. You're just going to multiply the -4 times the +7, and you get a -28. Then you move to the x's. So remember that the exponent is a 1. We just don't write it when it's a 1, but there is a 1 exponent above the x. And so when you multiply, you're actually adding the exponent. So it would be x times x squared. 2 plus 1 is 3. Now the reason that works is because an x times x squared would look like that. X times x times x. And so if there's a 1 exponent there, you can see why it would give you x cubed. Okay? All right. Okay, then we look at the y. We've got y squared times y cubed. Again, we're going to add the exponent, so we get y to the 5th. And again, just so you can visually see this, it would be y times y, which would be the y squared, times y times y times y. So you've got 2 y's and 3 y's. So that's why it's y to the 5th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's actually 5 y's. You're multiplying the y times itself 5 times. So your final answer would be a -28 x cubed y to the 5th. Okay, so let's look at the next problem. So our next problem, we've got 3x squared times y cubed times 2x cubed y to the 4th. So these are positive. So it would just be a +3 times a +2, which gives me a 6. X squared times x cubed. We add those exponents. 3 plus 2 is 5. Y cubed times y4. Again, we add our exponents. 3 plus 4 is 7. And that would be our final answer. 6, x to the 5th, y to the 7th. Okay, and so if you look at number 9, you can see that it's just a little bit different because there's a number outside of the parenthesis. So we've got that 8x cubed, and we're multiplying it times x to the 4th, y squared, plus 3x to the 4th, and then just a y. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be multiplying this 8x cubed first times the term that is x to the 4th y squared. Then we'll multiply this whole term to 3x to the 4th y. Okay, so we'll start with the coefficients. Remember, the coefficient is 1 there, even though we don't generally write it. So 8 times 1 would be 8. Now we're going to add our exponents. 3 and 4 is 7. There's no y, so the y doesn't change. It's just going to still be y squared. Now we'll move to the second term. 8 times 3 is 24. X cubed times x to the 4th we would add the 3 and the 4 together, which gives us x to the 7th. And then the y again doesn't have anything to multiply, so we just kind of add it to the end. So these are not like terms because this one has a y squared and this one just has a y, so we're not going to combine those together, and this would be our final answer. 8x to the 7th y squared plus 24x to the 7th y. All right, so let's look at number 10, and you'll notice number 10 has exponents outside of the parentheses. So we have a parenthesis, then a negative 4, x to the 4th y squared, times, oh, and then there's an exponent of a 3 outside the parenthesis. And then it's right next to another parenthesis, so of course that means to multiply. So then we have 7x squared y cubed. And then the end of the parenthesis. And there is no exponent outside this term. So because there's an exponent outside of the first term, that's the first thing that we're going to do. So basically what we're distributing is this 3 to the 2, the 4, and then remember there would be an exponent of 1 right there. So that would give us a negative 4 cubed. Then when we multiply the 3 and the 4, we're actually going to be multiplying, not just adding them together. So this would say 3 times 4, which would give us x to the 12th. Then this would say 3 times 2, which would give us y to the 6th. Okay, so let's further simplify because we can say what 4 times 4 times 4 is, right? So 4 times 4, a negative 4 times a negative 4 would give me a positive 16. And then times another negative 4 would give me a negative 64. Then the x to the 12th, and then the y to the 6th. Okay, I feel like I should give you a little further explanation of why we multiply when it's outside the parenthesis. And so let's just take a look of what this means when you're saying x to the 4th, which would be x times x times x times x. And then it's saying, when it's outside the parenthesis, there's 3 of these. There's 3 x to the 4th. So that would be saying x times 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 x. So that would give us 3, 6, 9, 12. And so that's why that becomes x to the 12th. And then the same idea for y to the 2nd. So we've got y to the 2nd, which means y times y, but 3 times. So 2, 4, 6. So that's why it becomes y to the 6th. Okay, so I'm going to erase my x's and y's. So now, remember we didn't have an exponent outside the parentheses, so now we're going to be multiplying this term times the negative 64 x to the 12th y to the 6th. Excuse me. So I'm going to need my calculator for this one. So the first thing that we're going to do then is to multiply a negative 64 times 7. So 64 times 7 is going to give me 448. Now, because it's a negative 64 times a positive 7, it's going to be a negative 448. Let's really make that look like a negative sign. Okay, then we've got x to the 12th times x squared. Now we're adding the exponents since these are inside parentheses. So this would be x to the 14th. And then the last one, y to the 6th and y to the 3rd. If we add those together, we get y to the 9th. All right, so let's go ahead and look at example 11. I'll go ahead and erase this one. So example 11, we've got parenthesis 2x squared, y, and then we've got a 3 outside the parenthesis, times 3xy, and the y's cubed, and then outside the parenthesis we have a 2. Okay, so to begin, we're going to distribute the exponents that are outside the parenthesis to the whole monomial. So that means we have 2 cubed. 3 times 2 is 6, so x to the 6. Remember, that's a 1. 3 times 1 is 3. And then that's going to be times 2 with an exponent of 1 gives me 3 squared. 2 times 1 is x squared. 2 times 3 is 6, so that's y to the 6th. Okay, we simplify first, so that means I'm going to say 2 times 2 times 2, which is going to be 8, x to the 6, y cubed, times 3 times 3 is 9, x squared, y to the 6th. Okay. We'll multiply our coefficients. 8 times 9 is 72. We'll add the exponents now. So we get 6 plus 2, which is 8. We'll add the exponents with the y. So we get y to the 9th. Great. Okay. So that's how you multiply a monomial times a monomial when you have an exponent outside the parentheses. So if you look at your handout, the next thing that we're going to be doing is multiplying binomials. And this is also in 5.5 and 5.6. So remember, a binomial has 2 terms. And so for number 12, we've got x plus 4 times x minus 2. Now, if you have done this before, maybe in high school, you may have called it foiling. And when they say foiling, they're saying you multiply the first terms, and then the outside terms, then the inside terms, and then the last terms, if you remember that. Basically, the instructions that I gave you were this. You're going to multiply the first term of the first parenthesis times the first term of the second parenthesis. So that just means x times x, remembering that the exponent is 1. So x times x would give me, I'm adding those exponents, x squared. Then you multiply the first term times the last term in the second parenthesis. So it would be x times a negative 2, which would give me a negative 2x. Then we've got 4 times x, which would give me 4x. And 4 times a negative 2, which is a negative 8. Sometimes after you multiply, you'll be able to combine like terms. So the only like terms we have are the negative 2x and the positive 4x. So that gives me x squared plus 2x minus 8. Okay, so let's just go back and think about this again. Multiplying the first term times the first terms, that means we're multiplying the x times the x. Then we're multiplying the first term times the last term over here. Then we're going to multiply the 4 times the x, and then we're multiplying the 4 times the negative 2. So you can see that we've got kind of a rainbow. So some people also call this a rainbow. If I had bunches of colors, it would look better, but I don't. I've got a blue and a black, and that's it today. Okay, so let's look at the second example. So our second example is 8a plus 3. Got a parenthesis. And then 3a plus 7. Okay, so we will begin by multiplying the 8a times the 3a. So 8 times 3 is 24. A times a is a squared. Then the first term times this last term. 8 times 7 is 56. So that's a positive 56. And the a just kind of follows along since there's no a there. Okay, now we're going to multiplying the 3 times the 3, which is a 9. And then the a just follows along. Then the 3 times the 7, which is 21. So now we're looking for like terms. 24a squared has no like terms, so we're just going to copy it over. The 56a and the 9a are like terms, so we're going to add those together. So that's going to give us 65a. We're adding, so remember we're only adding the coefficients. And then the 21 is added to that. And so our final answer is 24a squared plus 65a plus 21. Super. All right, let's look at example 14. So example 14, we have a parenthesis with 3x plus 7, 7y, and then we've got a squared. Okay, so something really important to remember with this, when you have two terms separated by either a plus sign or a minus sign in the middle, you can't just distribute this 3 to both of those terms, okay? What you really need to do is you need to multiply both of the terms together into parentheses. Now, some people like to do this in their head, but because this is our first one, we're not going to do it in our head. We're going to actually write them out. So see, I wrote the exact same thing twice, and then I'm going to multiply this 3x times that 3x. Then I'm going to multiply this 3x times 7y. Then 7y times 3x, and then 7y times 7y. So 3x times 3x, 3 times 3 is 9, x times x is x squared. 3x times 7y, 3 times 7 is 21, and then the x and the y just kind of follow along. Then we have 7 times 3, which is a positive 21. And then we have the x and the y. Even though the y comes first here, when you multiply them together, you should leave them in alphabetical order. And so, because the x comes first in the alphabet, it comes before the y. And then our last term, we've got 7 times 7, which is 49. And then y times y, which is y squared. Sorry, I kind of bunched that together over there at the end. And you can barely see it, I think. Okay, so then we're going to combine the like terms right here. So we get 9x squared plus 21 and 21 is 42xy. And then the 49y squared. So remember again, when you're adding, you can only add the coefficients, and you only add the coefficients if the terms are exactly the same, if they're like terms. so that's the answer to number 14. So let's go ahead and look at number 15. So number 15, I'm going to start over here. We've got 4x plus 4, and then a new parenthesis, 3x squared plus 9x minus 8. Okay, so you probably noticed that we've got two terms in the first parenthesis, and then we have three terms in the second parenthesis. So we're actually going to be multiplying it the same way that we did the other one, only now we have three terms. So it will be 4x times 3x squared. Then it'll be 4x times 9x. Then it'll be 4x times a negative 8. Then we would multiply the 4 times the 3x squared. Then the 4 times the 9x. And the 4 times the negative 8. Okay, so 4 times 3 is 12. I think I better write that over here. X times x squared. I'm adding those exponents, so it's x cubed. 4x times 9x. 4 times 9 is 36. X times x would be x squared. 4x times a negative 8. A negative 8 times 4 is a negative 32. Then we've got an x here, so it's also part. Okay. All right. Now we're going to multiply the 4 times all three of those terms. So 4 times 3 is 12, x squared. I'm going to put that right underneath the 36x squared because it sure does make it easier to add like terms when it's that way. 4 times 9 is 36, and then there's an x, so it's a positive 36x. And 4 times a negative 8 is a negative 32. Okay, so let's add the like terms together. 12x cubed doesn't have a like term. 36 and 12 have the same exponents and the same variable, so we get 48x squared. 32x and 36x have the same variable. A negative plus a positive, in this case, will be a positive, and it's going to be a 4x. And then minus 32. And then we're finished with that one. Okay. Well, we've got one more, so let's go ahead and do that one. So we have 4x minus 7 times 3x minus 5. Okay, so first term times first term, 12x squared. 4x times a negative 5, a negative 20x. A negative 7 times 3 is a negative 21x. Move that so I can see it. Negative 7 times a negative 5 is a positive 35. Then you add your like terms. And we get 12x squared minus 41x plus 35. Okay, so the homework, if you look on your homework sheet, we're going to be doing, where it says week 9, even though this is week 10, we're a little bit behind, but hopefully we'll catch up soon. So for week 9, we're going to be doing 10-4, 10-5, 10-6, 10-8, tin 1 and tin 2. I'm going to go ahead and do the video for tin 8 in a few minutes. And so if you want, you can go ahead and start that homework too. And then on Wednesday, I'll post the tin 1 and the tin 2. I may post them earlier, but anyway. So for the week, the tin 4 to the tin 2 is going to be your homework, okay? If you've lost this, you might want to send me a text or send me an email so that I can mail this to you. Email it back or text it back to you, okay? All right, guys, good luck with your polynomials, adding, subtracting, and multiplying. And I'll see you tomorrow at your Zoom at 11:30. Okay, bye-bye.